a story from Oldham, constitutional grounds. The coronavirus, is it just another excuse for tyranny in the U.S.?
Well, that's why I drink Coors.
From his story out of constitutional grounds, in this case, questions remain about the origin of the coronavirus. Did it originate in animals and transfer to humans? A process called, is it zoonosis? Zoonosis. I think I dated her in high school. Or was it the origin from the Wuhan National Biosafety Laboratory, which is where she said she worked? So, what's the angle on this excuse for tyranny with a virus?
Well, before we get started, I just have to take an aside here for a second, because when I was looking up for some of the information, there actually is a search that's gotten popular and shows up. It's for the Corona beer virus. It was started accidentally by some Indians in India. And it has got on. So that just as a quick aside. But the question is this something that they're in Wuhan, in the city of Wuhan or just outside of the city, is a BSL or a biosafety lab, level 4, which is the top level. Everybody goes in there, wears hazmat suits, respirators, the whole 9 yards. Supposed to be the safest facility and things like that, but they will test on animals, and who knows how they're dealing with everything. This is China, and they kind of do things their own way. But the other problem is, the questions remain. Questions were called this was called into question years ago, over a dozen years ago, when they were proposing it, because the Chinese society is so layered and especially hierarchical with age, that there isn't a lot of communication between the ages, and there needs to be this real open communication so that everybody knows what's going on and nothing slips through the cracks. So the question is, did something get let out that shouldn't have gotten let out? Because they're doing all sorts of SARS, which coronavirus is a SARS, or a severe respiratory disease, and so it's a form of SARS. There's a number of SARS viruses. It's a family, and corona is they're calling it the novel or the novel coronavirus. I think it's novel coronavirus. And it makes me wonder, does the novelty aspect of it, is that, where's that coming from? But anyway,
probably some beer representatives called and said, hey, could you slap another name in front of that?
Well, the thing is that China has really cracked down. They are literally...
They're good at cracking down. They're good at one thing.
And the question is, go to constitutional grounds, look at the article. Alex Jones, internet king of the conspiracy theory.
Sure.
The only thing is, if he's right, is it a theory? But the thing is that he was putting up and having a discussion about how it is like a prelude to the rest of the world picking up on their techniques as they try to repress forced vaccinations. And
I was promised everyone's going to die as a result of this. When is that going to happen, approximately?
Well, I could not find the...
David, this is, I'm going to quote somebody, this is the 5th end of the world that I've survived now.
Yeah.
So,
you are a good parent.
Oh, you've missed all the rest. There's been a whole lot of others.
Are we this gullible? Like every time it's like the swine flu's going to kill everyone, the avian flu's going to kill
every
everyone.
2 years there's a really big one.
I posted something here in the group. It's got 205 likes so far. It says, virus scares probably won't cost you your life, but will be used to take your liberty.
Yeah.
True story.
And here's the important thing.
That's the question.
Yeah, and David and I were talking in show prep tonight about this. This also coincides with the Chinese New Year, which is really unique. They're not big on celebrating Thanksgiving or Christmas, but New Year's in China, it's like 2 weeks off work. I mean, everything shuts down.
They don't even know
So
what a
what do
pilgrim
you
is.
do with a billion people with lots of spare time? How do you keep them in control? This is, the Hong Kong rebellions going on and everything else.
You corral the tanks.
How do you get them not to peaceably assemble? You scare them with viruses.
It's called education.
Just
Scare them with
putting it
education,
out there.
right?
That's a
Alex,
conspiracy
right?
theory.
Alex, you'd be proud of me. Okay, but so
That can't be true.
you have that narrative there because some of the other things just so happen to coincide when the Chinese people were shutting everything down to celebrate, lots of time off, time to get together and organize events.
Time away from
Well-
the Foxconn suicide nets.
And here's part of the reason that I bring all of this up, because there's always a scare. I mean, we've just been through how many in the last couple months where they're trying to scare us about measles again, or they're trying to scare us about the flu. They're trying. I
Stacking
mean,
bodies.
I could not believe the number of people who are getting flu shots. Do you realize that there is not a single flu shot that has ever been tested, ever, before it's given? It's
Hold
always
on
been-
now. A bunch of people agree that they're a good idea. Therefore, they must be right. That's how logic and science work, David.
This virus is getting rushed into production actually faster than
David,
your flu
it doesn't
shot.
matter how long any of them take. They're made by science, and therefore they're good.
Right. If you've got a white lab coat, that makes you a scientist.
Shapiro was on the air today, and I just accidentally heard him comment a caller. He does the call-in or
That's
whatever.
the way I usually hear them.
And no, I'm a sycophant. But the caller was asking about vaccines, and Shapiro was saying that he is in favor of the communicable disease vaccines,
Not surprising.
not in favor of the behavioral oriented vaccines. Does that make
He
sense?
wants to mandate half of them or something, right?
What does
Yeah, I
it mean by
think so.
behavioral?
Well, things that are, I forget his example. Things
Well,
that,
the papilloma virus.
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
Vaginal warts. That'd be sexually transmitted disease.
Right.
Well, that's
and-
a communicable disease.
But
so
no. Listen.
But it has to do with
He said
behavior.
it has to do with a certain
Okay, I
behavior
get- I
puts
get
you
what
at
you're
risk
saying.
for that.
Okay, right,
Things
right.
where you can also just stop that behavior, which brings me to say, you like wash your hands. You know.
Yeah, I mean, so I thought he
That's
had
the
a-
best vaccine in the world is to wash your hands.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, ultimately, what gets me for Oklahoma is if this turns out to be a release from the safety lab, the biosafety lab, we are going to have a biosafety lab just like it, just north of us here in either Kansas or Missouri. And they are in the process of developing it, and it's going in. So we could have something. You look at the map of all of the worldwide contagion or the
Like the lab in
cases,
Hawkins on
the
Stranger
cases,
Things.
They're all in Wuhan and the province there of Hubei, and so it makes you wonder why right there and only there is all of this going on, and then they're starting to spread out.
I don't know.
But we have that. But the other thing is, again, with the scares, there's always a scare, and it's always to get you and I to clamor to have government come up with something,
Yeah.
and government make everybody get the shot.
Well, you can't get the government bucks unless you scare someone. It's not politically
Well,
expedient.
but remember, there's always a profit motive behind that, because everybody's making money who's creating these things.
Sure.
Nobody is doing this out of the goodness of their heart and being philanthropic about it whatsoever.
Just to be clear, Tom, is Shapiro for mandated vaccines and the non-behavioral?
No, he was. Basically, he was saying
Yeah.
because he says we have a shared interest. In
well,
it.
I don't know
That's
if he's
why
for
it does not
mandates.
surprise me.
I don't
That's
know-
why I do not like Ben Shapiro.
But
Well,
is he for
let's
mandates
ask.
or just
For
personal?
mandates or for the vaccines?
Mandates is what Tom said.
I don't know his official position.
Let's
I just
get
was
that.
what he said.
And that was
Let's
on
find out.
today's,
Sounded like
so I can pull up the podcast.
We'll find
have
out
to-
all
we'll have to
binge.
I'll
look
post
at
up
it.
the results on Facebook after I listen to it later tonight.
But ultimately, it comes down to neighbor demanding something from a neighbor, rather than allowing neighbors to just get along and do like they're doing in China. And now I'm seeing here, because I can tell that people are afraid here, people here are going around with a mask on because
Right.
they're afraid to catch something.
Yeah, because you got
Um,
parents who are concerned that their child is too vulnerable to get that vaccine, but it's safe for your kid enough for me to force your kid to get it.
Well, and
Because it's not safe for
Yeah.
mine.
None of these people being scientists, not that that even matters
Yeah.
in terms of objective truth.
well, and now rather than the boy in the bubble who needed to be protected from nature, we're going to somehow sanitize nature. And by everybody getting a shot,
Yeah.
we're going to so sanitize nature that the bubble's not necessary.
in-
And if the bubble ever is, you're guilty for making that bubble
Why aren't we
necessary.
shutting down flights from China?
Yeah,
Van.
but and this is the problem. There was a time when I could go to Mexico and drink the water, but because they've chlorinated our water for so long, my body's become so weak that I no longer can safely drink that.
He's
other
telling the
water.
truth. He's quite
No
frail.
doubt about it. There
Okay,
it is.
so this is the problem with changing the bubble, flipping it around to where all of a sudden we're going to make nature sterile. And then we have people with no immunity when they get out in the real nature, like Mexico.
Right,
It's
like
the tap
Mexico.
water, guys.
Yeah.
It's the tap water.
Yeah.